Hello listener, welcome to another Fillion episode of Two Grown Men, another one grown man. It sounds weird saying one grown man. I think between us, James and I are two grown men, but I'm quite small. So yeah, one grown man doesn't really work. Maybe 2/3 of a man? I don't know. Anyway, hello. It's another Fillion episode. We try to avoid doing these, but unfortunately, where there are only two of us and the show kind of relies on the two of us, they do sometimes become necessary. These happen for various reasons. I think at the moment, this is me drawing in the lead in terms of whose fault they generally are. Not that we've really got a blame culture going on here. There's too much love between me and James for that. But yeah, this time I was the one who couldn't make it to recording. I had a couple of very good reasons. And normally James and I would try and pull something together, have a conversation over Skype or something, but he had stuff going on too. I will get into that in just a second. The reason I couldn't record properly today was I actually had to leave work. We normally record these episodes at the studio at my work, and at the end of the day, so about 5 o'clock, sometimes at lunchtimes. And today I had to leave work at lunchtime because I had to basically come home and look after Amy and Noah. About a week ago, maybe Thursday last week, Amy had her flu jabs. Because she's pregnant, she gets kind of a priority on flu jabs. They encourage you to get them because it's a really bad idea getting flu if you have a baby inside you, apparently. So yeah, she got her flu jab, and last time when she was pregnant with Noah and she had a flu jab, she felt pretty rough afterwards, but figured that maybe it was a coincidence or whatever. This time she feels really rough. It's one of those ironies, the kill or cure, what doesn't kill you makes you a stranger sort of situation. Apparently, this is something I didn't know or I'd completely misunderstood about. I figured the reason she was feeling ill was because when they vaccinate you, they do it by giving you a little bit of a bug. Apparently that isn't the way the flu jabs work, but what they do in some people is they boost your flu fighting antibodies or something, and that means that with the antibodies kind of roiling around, you get a lot of the same symptoms that you get from flu. I don't know if that's actually if that's actually medically accurate, but certainly she had her flu jab, and for the second time she's been just completely exhausted, achy all over, just a complete state. She's not really been able to eat that much because her throat hurts, and when and this is another thing I didn't really realise. Amy had glandular fever sometime before we met each other, when she was in her late teens or when she was at university, I think. And I think I've known people who had glandular fever when I was a kid. I get the feeling, if memory serves me well, and it doesn't always, but there was one girl at secondary school who actually ended up taking a year out with glandular fever and then recovering for a little bit and then having to go off again. Now, I don't think Amy's lasted quite that long, but what I didn't realise is that once you have it, it's one of those conditions that kind of, your glands are never quite right again. So whenever she gets a cold or something like that, she has quite a lot of problems with her throat. So that meant that she couldn't go to work, but at the same time it means that she's not really in any state to look after Noah. It's very unlike Amy to get ill, or certainly it's unlike her to allow illness to get on top of her to the point that she can't go to work or can't do basic stuff around the house. But this has really sort of taken out of her. So I'm very lucky that my employer allows me to take a little bit of time off for emergency childcare and family stuff. So I'm able to take the time off for that. So that's what I've been doing. But it did mean I wasn't around to record the episode this week. And James's big thing this week was today was his first full day back at work, so he wouldn't have been able to record at lunchtime anyway. That meant that, and the fact that I am not as good at doing all of the evening stuff by myself as Amy is. You know, all of the evening baby stuff by myself as Amy is. And also the fact that James was quite tired and a bit stressed out, I think, after his first night, meant that all of the plans we had for maybe doing a quick 20-minute episode together, either over Skype or me popping over there, kind of fell through. I think, to be honest, it was on me. I could have pushed it a little bit, but I failed. I failed you, and I failed James, and I failed the podcast. I'm sorry, listener. I'm sure James will talk about his first day back next week. Yeah, one thing that today has kind of allowed me a little bit of the weekend as well, but mainly today, was it did mean that I got to do a bunch of things for the first time that I haven't really done before. And it's going to sound ridiculous that I haven't done these things before. For example, I took Noah to James and Nicola's house. I did the childcare run with Noah this morning, which I've never done before. Certainly, I've never driven with Noah in the car by myself before. Amy's always been in there with us whenever I've driven in the past. So that was exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking. I'm not the most confident driver in the world, but I generally feel like the people in the car with me are safe. And yet I did kind of feel the pressure in the hours leading up to knowing I was going to be driving him around a lot today. Yeah, so it was a little bit weird because I've got a little bit more confident with driving. I had a few driving lessons when I was about 17, but then I didn't actually get my driving license or pass my test until the beginning of this year. After about a year and a half of doing lessons, I failed a few times. So I don't think my brain's as plastic as a 17-year-old. So I had a bit of trouble picking up the basics. And yeah, so it was kind of exciting and a little bit weird driving Noah around. In the first instance, I drove him over to Nicola's. That's James's wife. It's actually James and Nicola's and Scarlett's house, but specifically it's Nicola who's been looking after him in the mornings. When I say him, I mean Noah. She looks after James in the mornings as well, but specifically in this instance, I'm talking about Noah. So yeah, Nicola's been very kindly looking after him. So so I took him over. I've never done that run before. I think the trip to James and Nicola's house is the journey I have driven the most, but normally I end up doing it on my own. Or the whole family's in the car. So it was quite unusual taking Noah over there. Embarrassingly, this was also the first time I had to take the car seat out of the car. And later on, it was the first time I had to put the car seat back into the car. It is a little bit humiliating admitting that because I've been with him plenty in the car. There's really no excuse except to say that it just hasn't ever come up. So I learned how to do the car seat after 6 months of us using that car seat. And yeah, I did the handoff and I took him into James and Nicola's house. I don't think I've ever seen James that early in the morning. That was quite exciting. Scarlett was very happy to see him and the dogs were very happy to see him. And I was basically getting this insight into something that Amy's been doing a couple of times a week for the last couple of weeks. Or, well, if you count taking him to the Childminder just in general, it's been going on for months and I've just never done it before. I also had to go and pick him up from the Childminders. He's been going to that Childminder for a really long time, and this is the first time I've ever driven there by myself. So, again, that's another slightly humiliating thing. I went to pick him up, and the Childminder was there at the door with him. She was very, very helpful. It wasn't the main Childminder, it was one of the people who works there with her. She was very nice, she was very helpful. She recognised me, and I'm really bad, so I only really recognised one of them. But she did start telling me loads of stuff about his day there, and I had to check in with Amy later on because I'm not very good at... I don't think it was small talk, but I'm not very good at small talk, and it presented a little bit like that. So I wasn't really sure why she was telling me all this stuff, but apparently... Amy shamed me a little bit when I got home because I said, do they normally just tell you everything he's done that day? And she said, well, I mean, normally I ask. So clearly they thought I'd be interested because Amy always is, whereas I was just kind of glad to see him and worrying about the car seat at that point and whether I was going to be able to put it back into the car okay. But it does raise the question, and hopefully we'll remember to pick this up in next week's show or a show in the future. There's this term that's started going around mainly in blog posts written by people who are self-designated as this thing. The term is default parent. The main blog post I remember seeing was, are you the default, it was headlined, are you the default parent? If you aren't sure, you almost definitely aren't. And it kind of speaks for itself, the term default parent. It means the one who is always thought of as the parent, the one who's going to be doing most of the things with the child. But there's a judgment in there, it feels like. And I don't think it's entirely always fair, this judgment. It was the one particular blog post I remember reading, and I think nearly every time this term comes up, it's used in kind of this way. Very much took the tone that it's a hassle and typically patriarchal that the woman always gets considered the default parent, but at the same time it's fucking awesome. And there is this... maybe not for every dad, or certainly for every working parent, but there is this central contradiction or paradox there, which is that you sometimes, a lot of the time, you get treated or you feel like you have left your partner at home with the baby or the child, as if you've dumped them with the hard job, when actually you would like nothing more than to stay at home with the child. In my particular case, to be the one who takes that role, in my particular case, there was never any question that Amy was going to be staying home with Noah, and it was one of those frustrating conversations where I wanted there to be a discussion because I quite wanted to be the one who stayed at home with him, and she kind of put her foot down. We normally discuss all of the really big decisions, but this was one of those ones that was just kind of assumed. So I think the default parent thing is one of those weird have your cake and eat it too things in modern parenting, where you get to be a martyr but at the same time really get to like toot your own horn and be smug at the same time, and it's very weird. I don't think I really like it. Other things that happened today, the sale/purchase of houses is moving on. It meant that this evening, Amy and I had a phone conversation with our mortgage person about the life insurance. If you've never bought a house, you might not know that most lenders insist that you get life insurance for both partners or for whoever's responsible for the house, so that they're covered so there's cover if one of you dies and the house ends up getting bought outright by the insurance. So basically, I'm literally worth more at this moment to Amy dead than I am alive, which is one of those things. And yeah, actually, nearly every couple that you know who owns their own house and has a mortgage, they're probably in the same situation as well. But I remember it being quite difficult the last time we had to do this life insurance conversation, because there are a lot of questions about your health, and specifically there's a point where there are questions about your mental health as well, which can get a little bit sticky. You've got to have you in the last 5 years, have you in the last 10 years, sort of caveat in there. And I have that difficult situation where I don't suffer from diagnosed depression, but I know that I have in the past suffered from situational depression, like a particularly bad breakup or a particularly bad situation at work. We're talking about literally 2 or 3 times in 20 years that I've had to take a few days off because things got on top of me so much. So it was a little bit sticky last time. This time we had this interesting situation where I was asked the question, have you suffered from anxiety in the last anxiety or panic attacks in the last 5 years? And I had to say, well, no, I thought I was having anxiety attacks, but actually it turns out I've got asthma. As I'm sure if you've listened to lots of episodes of the show, you already know this, listener. And now I'm intrigued as to which would have looked worse and impacted more on our insurance, because the next question was, have you got asthma or anything like that? So, also, if my dad had just waited a few years later for his first angina attack, which led to his heart attacks and his diabetes and stuff like that, and if he just waited a few more years, he would have saved us something like £8 a month. So yeah, his shitty lifestyle has really impacted on our insurance situation, which is a bit sucky. Parents are so selfish. That's it. That's literally the most interesting stuff that's going on in my life this week. As I said, hopefully James and I will be able to get in the studio again properly next week. Until then, you can go back and listen to our previous episodes. If you haven't already, they're at twogrownmen.net. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or anywhere where podcasts can be subscribed to, I guess. You can email us at 2gmpodcast@gmail.com. We like getting feedback, and we always get lovely feedback. So if you've got something to say about the show, positive or negative, we'd really like to hear it there, or in the comments to this episode, or on the Facebook page, or on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at 2gmpod, or I am Nick Sight, NIXSIGHT, and James is James Momb. One thing I will say is, if you do listen to us on iTunes or Stitcher or somewhere like that, and you do like what we do, please do rate and review us. It's always nice to see reviews on there, but it can also put us in front of other listeners, other users of iTunes or of those services. So if you like us, it's nice to share us. Episodes also go out on SoundCloud and YouTube. There should be links to those at the site twogrownmen.net. That's 2 the number 2, by the way. I don't think I made that clear enough. 2 the number 2 grownmen, all one word, .net. I guess that's me done. I am very tired, listener. I've been putting this off all night because I hate doing solo podcasts. So it's now very late. There's a very good chance I'm going to pass out while sticking this through Audacity. So if there are more ums or ers or incredibly controversial things I've said about people using their names and everything left in, that's why. It's because I've passed out on my computer and just accidentally stuck this on the website. So before I get myself in any real trouble, I shall say goodbye, and hopefully we'll speak to you next week. We love you, listener. Bye-bye.